It's back to more of the Business Edge on V1370.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Business Edge. My name is Angie Huffman. I am your host with HFS Associates, an accounting and business advisory services firm. Today, we're talking about Tyranny of the Urgent with Jody Hume. Jody, before the break, you were talking about that movie that we start playing in our heads, like, you know, and what you're referring to was I'm thinking, okay, and if I say no to this client, I'm going to lose the client. What's the next? So how do I play that movie through?
First thing that happens in any situation like that, whether it's in your business or your personal life or anything, is you have the initial emotional reaction, and it's usually fear. If I say no, they're not going to like me. I'm going to lose a client. They'll think I'm not a team player. It'll show up in my performance review. I mean, this sort of tidal wave of fears come up. So it's very easy to go, so I can't go down that path because it looks like these huge, I've used that analogy of, you know, when the police are training and the things pop up, and sometimes it's the little girl with the puppy and sometimes it's the bandit. You know, first all the bandits pop up and look like they block your way. But if you take a deep breath and step back for a second and allow that movie to play out. So if you do lose a client, is it a client you really want? If it is, then what needs to happen to change the situation so it is a client that will stay with you? Or just keep playing it. So what if they don't like you? Does it really matter? Are they people that you want in your life? And keep asking, so what? And then what? And then what? And see where it really goes. Because a lot of times, the end result is not nearly as scary as it feels in that first moment. So for you, let's play around a little bit.
Okay.
So you might lose a client. And then I can't pay my bills. Great, no.
Okay, yeah.
And then what happens?
And then I go bankrupt. I mean, I could really go down a really negative path. But what you had said as far as, and I did get to this place. Okay, and so what? If I lost that client, is that really a client I want in the first place? If they are going to be someone who does not understand that there are time parameters to this, that it's not a 10-minute thing for me to throw together your tax return, and that there are other clients and you expect me to drop everything and take care of you, and if I don't, then you leave me, you know, it's like, okay.
And so I want you to imagine for a minute you have a practice full of that.
Yes.
Is that the life you want?
No, absolutely not. It is definitely not the life I want.
Yeah.
And
every choice, every little moment takes you closer to or further away from what you want.
Right.
Life is not about, you know, creating a fulfilling life or a successful business is not about those gargantuan choices that you spend months and months and months deliberating over. It is about the every little moment's awareness of what you're choosing right now and what the bigger impact is. I mentioned something before, this great little tool I use with my clients and with myself all the time. Whenever you say yes to something, you are always saying no to something else. And the reverse is true. When you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. Stepping back and looking at what those two things are, you then get to choose what's most important. So if you say no to those clients, that client, what are you saying yes to?
I'm saying yes to maybe the clients that work with me more year-round, and that I'm able to help them keep their records up to date, counsel them on their business decisions throughout the year, so I'm not having to fix it or help them try to fix it at tax time.
And what's the impact of that?
The impact of that is that both the client and I am a lot happier.
And what's the impact of that on your business?
Okay, then they refer me and I get new clients, and, you know, they stick with me forever. And if there is a time when I have to say, no, can't get to that this week, they're okay with that.
And if so let's back up again and run the same path. If you say yes to that client initially, what are you saying no to?
Say yes to the last minute
client.
Okay. Then I'm saying no to those clients that don't expect that last minute thing out of me. You know, those clients that are, in the end, you know, quite frankly, more profitable because they are with me throughout the year, and I can help them take care of everything, and I can help them grow. You know, I have an opportunity to help them grow because we're not doing the tax return at October 15th at 11:59 p.m.
Yeah. And which takes me back to something you said initially. Even if I worked 24 hours a day, I couldn't do it all in that amount of time.
No.
Everyone has finite resources. No matter what we do, there are 24 hours of the day. And if there were 30, we'd be just as busy. There are finite hours in the day.
Right.
if you want to use your resources, whatever they are, most wisely, you have to be aware what you're saying yes and no to.
Right. Well, and I do the same thing with my clients from a financial perspective. When they're deciding how they're going to spend the funds in their business, trying to get them to understand that if you say yes to this marketing opportunity, you're saying no to another marketing opportunity. If you say yes to this thing, you're saying no to hiring another employee.
And what's really, I really want to stress, it's there are no right answers.
No.
With time management in general, saying yes to going to a networking meeting so that you have to say no to spending time with your family. Sometimes that if you need more networking, need more clients, then you need to say yes to it. And if you're really wishing you had more time with your family, then you can make that decision. It just gives you the tools to balance it out and be really aware of what you're choosing.
Right. So always ask yourself when you're in that situation, okay, if I say no here, what am I saying yes to, and vice versa?
Yeah. And if I say yes, what am I saying no to? And which feels right. I got this sense from you when you're talking about, I said, what would happen if you had a group of clients, if your whole practice was full of last minute clients, like I could just, you like stiffened, you're like, you can feel it in your chest when it's the wrong thing.
Right.
And it's not even a woo-woo intuition thing. It's just your initial reaction to it. You can feel it. Whereas if you think about having a practice full of those people who you can work with because they respect the professional relationship.
Right.
That feels really good, and you can see the possibility of what you can create for them and with them, and which will grow your business.
Right. And here's the interesting thing I discovered as I was going through that, and I just finally had to just start telling people, I'm sorry, you've brought it to me too late. I'll get to it when I can. Because also come October, the months of September and October, tax returns are like the last thing from my mind. I was done with them back in April 15th, and there's a whole lot of other things going on in my practice at that time. But what I discovered is that when I told people, sorry, it can't be done, and then here are the possible challenges with that, I'll do what I can. Usually they were okay with that. But here I was imagining that they're going to get mad and they're going to stomp off. And what another friend had said to me at the time, and okay, like they're going to be able to find another CPA 5 days before the deadline to get this done for them in time? Yeah, most likely not.
That, when we talked about the movie, that initial emotional reaction always jumps to the worst possible scenario. Right. Chances are, if somebody's coming to you last minute, they know they're last minute, and if they're going to be like, I know, I can't have it. I was hoping you could do it, but so completely underestimating the other person in the relationship, and that comes back to that training thing. It's all about training them, and training's probably not the best word, but modeling for people what your expectations are and how you want that relationship to work.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you model that expectation? Or we were talking before the show began. How do you say no? You were saying something that's important. How you say no? I think the way you deliver your no really sets the stage for how they're going to react. If you deliver it with all wrapped up in all this, oh, I'm so sorry, I'd really like to, but even if I work 24 hours a day, I can't. It would just be so hard, and I don't know how I'd get it done. You're kind of setting them up. They're going to receive it. It's going to land with them in a way that they're still expecting you. Okay, well, so yeah, do that. Work really hard. Whereas if you deliver your no and just kind of strip off all the emotional, because you react that way because you're imagining that worst case scenario movie, like they're gonna feel this horrible way. Whereas if you just kind of step back from that and say, I have time for you next Tuesday, or here, like you said, you did the great thing. Here are some options. That's not possible, but here's what is. And just delivering no in a very matter-of-fact way, and you do that by not focusing on that movie, just staying really present with the pure facts of the situation. I have other things I'm doing right now. I have availability tomorrow at 3 and next Tuesday at 4. Which one of those would work for you? People 9 times out of 10 will say, oh yeah, tomorrow at 2 is fine. And then they'll start to learn that that's the way you do business. Right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, first thing I need to do is get a grip on my own emotions.
Yeah.
And not react to the moment, and then step back and strip away that emotion. Because if I act emotionally toward them, they're going to more likely act emotionally toward me.
Mm-hmm. And I think when you say emotionally, people think of, I don't know, like crying. And it's more, letting the fear piece, the whatever you're afraid will happen if I say no. If you're seeing that movie in your head while you're talking, you're reacting emotionally.
Right.
So if you're imagining, oh my God, they're going to hate me, or they're going to quit as my client, then you're talking from the fear perspective.
Right.
If you shift your perspective to just simply what are the actual facts? This can't be done between now and then.
It's just not humanly
possible. It's as simple as that. And you don't
Right.
even have to say it's not humanly possible.
Right.
We can't do that. But here's what we can do. Here are some options.
Right.
And just stay focused on the facts.
Okay. And then that way...
And I want to, and I do want to be very clear about something. This is not something you just instantaneously do. These skills are, if you think of them like muscles that you're building. The first time you do it, it's going to be clumsy, and it might not come off the way you want, and
Right.
your muscles will definitely be sore afterwards because you're going to feel like you stumbled through it. But if you continue to build that muscle of saying no when you need to, you will begin to create the landscape that, just like with your existing clients, where it's not an issue.
Right. Yeah. So, and I'm sure that's what everyone would want. That landscape where it's just not an issue. And of course, there's always going to be the people where it is an issue.
And that's the beauty of if you create this landscape for yourself, when genuine emergencies come up, you have the resources to deal with them. So
Right.
when one of your clients genuinely has an emergency, you're able to be that super CPA who swoops in and saves the day,
Right.
because you haven't exhausted all your resources
Right.
on not true emergencies.
True.
And that's how you build a business. If you want a successful business, that's the landscape you need to do it in.
Right, right. And typically, I'm very good with that. I mean, I was good with that with my current client, my existing clients. But then in buying this other practice where there were just all these people and they started coming out of the woodwork, and, it was like, ah!
Great point that you actually just brought up. Good question to ask yourself is, whose rules am I working on? Whose rules am I playing by?
Right. Okay. So, and I got to make sure, that
You stepped into a new practice that had rules, and you were starting off trying to play by their rules
instead of playing by my rules that I knew had worked.
Yes. Great. Excellent.
So keep in track with my rules. What else can you say to me about that, about the whole rule thing, or what other, as far as, okay, so we take the emotion out of it with delivering the no to the client. What else can we do in that regard to smooth things out?
I think, we originally talked, when we talked about this show, about Stephen Covey's grid that he uses about categorizing things into urgent and important and not important. And I've used that with clients, and I always see this funny thing happen where they're very, very hesitant to put anything in the not important category.
Okay.
Because what doesn't feel important? So, one real trap is when you're in a situation where there are conflicting priorities, where
Okay.
you have your priorities versus your company's priorities or your team's priorities. And that's, again, where that yes-no can come into play.
Okay.
Can be a great tool.
Alrighty. Yeah. Then yes, no, as far as figuring out the priorities, and is something truly important.
Yes.
Okay. This is Angie Huffman of The Business Edge, and with Jody Hume of Jody Hume Coaching. Thank you.